Hello friends, for today's video I want to go through a list of some fantasy standalones I think are great for the summer. This is going to be a companion video to a list of summer recommendations that are adult fantasy and are also parts of series. As noted today, we are zeroing in on standalones, and all of these are also actually adult fantasy as well, with the exception of one book, which we'll mention at the end. But if any of these sound interesting to you, I will have all of them linked, as well as if I've done any in-depth reviews or discussions. Also, when I think summer recommendations, what I'm typically thinking of are books that are action-packed, fast-paced, adventurous, and then on occasion, of course, are ones where maybe there's a desert setting or there's something about them that just is making us think of heat and just being miserable in that sense. So all of these are going to have either one or multiple of those components to them, but kicking things off, the first two are part of a shared universe. So if you want to check out one and you like it, you can also check out the other. You don't have to read one of them before the other one, but those two books would be Ruination and Mbessa. These are part of the League of Legends world. Most people are aware of League of Legends from one of two places or both of these places, which would be the League of Legends video games or the show Arcane. Mbessa is linked to the show Arcane. You can read the Mbessa novel first, or if you want, you can watch the show and then read the book. The events of the book take place before the events of the show. There's one flashback that happens within the show that you do actually see within the book, but again, you can decide for yourself which one you want to read chronologically. The book comes first, but you don't have to read it beforehand. The setup for Mbessa, at its core, is a line of succession plot. So you have the Medarda clan that Mbessa is a part of, and there is one person in particular who is kind of the one holding everything together, but this is a very cutthroat group of people, and when this individual passes away, which it seems like is going to happen soon, if he does not name an heir, there will absolutely be unrest within this clan, which is not only bad for the clan itself, but also there are a lot of enemies just waiting for the second that any of them are weak. So Mbessa right away is trying to get this leader of this clan to name who is going to be the next person to rule, and they are all very nervous that he is going to die before he has officially named someone. And from there, you are seeing not only a level of infighting within the clan, but also, again, there are a lot of enemies surrounding them as well. It's very action-packed. It is something that you just feel like this character, always there's something going on. And not only do you get this character, but you do get a little bit of other characters within this. So you get the character Mel that is also seen within the show Arcane. You get a little bit of her perspective, and there's a decent amount of political intrigue within this too. So I think political intrigue, a lot of times we think that's going to be a little bit slower going. It's more about the buildup of things as opposed to just feeling like there's action on the page, but this I think blended the two quite well. Ruination to me was really fun because I didn't necessarily have expectations of these characters or the plot going in. This one exists within the same universe, but it is very removed from the show. So if you are expecting a connection there, you don't have to worry about that whatsoever. And within this story, you follow a character who, she is somebody who is really close to a very powerful, important person. She, at this point, is basically like their protector, their advisor, and they're a little arrogant. They maybe don't always trust most people's counsel, but they trust hers. And at the very beginning of the story, something happens that puts a loved one of his in danger, and now the character has to embark on this journey to try and find this mythical place in order to see if they can find something that will heal this other character who it would seem is dying. It is filled with that sense of wonder. When it comes to fantasy standalones too, I was really impressed with the balancing of the characters, them having life breathed into them, finding the plot to be engaging and fun, and having this sense of discovery and just feeling like classic fantasy in a sense, that feeling a lot of us had when we kind of first got into fantasy, for a lot of us as kids, but no matter what age you first got into fantasy, there's that wow factor of like, oh, I guess anything is possible. And I really felt like because of the fact that we are searching for this mythical place, it captured that really exceptionally within this. And there are a lot of really fun twists and turns over the course of the story as well. From there, I had to mention Best Served Cold. I did not mean for these first three to all be parts of shared universes, but Best Served Cold is also part of a shared universe. So within this, it's part of Abercrombie's First Law world. First Law, most of you are probably very aware, there is the First Law trilogy, and then there are Abercrombie's Standalones, which is what Best Served Cold is, and then you have the Age of Madness trilogy that comes later. I could also say, just go for First Law if you haven't ever checked it out, but you don't necessarily have to. In order to read Best Served Cold, you don't have to read any of his other books first. And if you've always kind of been interested in checking out Abercrombie, but maybe you don't necessarily want to dive into a series, you can start with Best Served Cold. I think this is one of the easier entry points because of the fact it's just a single book. And Abercrombie is really known for his character work. And one of the things people struggle with the First Law trilogy is that it feels very meandering, and it can feel like, is there a plot at all in this story? Or are we just following people around? And I think within Best Served Cold, you have his signature character work, but you also have an engaging plot. And it's a plot that a lot of people can just immediately grab onto, as it is at its core a revenge story. You follow this character who, at the beginning of the story, she is betrayed. And then it would seem that the enemies thought they had killed her, but you know that they did not. And that is now her sole purpose in life, is to get vengeance against these people who turned out to be traitors to her. She kind of recruits a merry band of misfits, if you will, but it's grimdark, so it's not exactly like a cute band of misfits. It's a really intense, brutal band of misfits, and they come together to try and aid her in her quest. Next up, we have a book that I could definitely see a lot of people recommending for the fall, and I would completely understand why, because there is a witch component to the story. It's baked into the title, which I'll say in just a second, but I feel like it's less about kind of that aesthetic or the general vibe or the setting that a lot of us think of for fall. It's less that. To me, it actually feels a lot closer to what I think of when I think of summer books, and that would be A Resistance of Witches. And the reason to me this feels like a summer book is because at its core, it's witches fighting Nazis. And it was kind of awesome, and the setup for the story kind of almost has like an Indiana Jones feel as well, because within the antagonists, they are trying to find lost relics or these artifacts that might have powers, and the witches are trying to prevent that from happening, and they're also basically trying to prevent world domination from occurring. And so they're using their knowledge and their powers to intervene with the general population, when typically they don't really do this, but they feel like at this point they have to. One, because they don't want to watch all of the world become oppressed by these horrible people, but then also on top of that, they feel like because of the artifacts component that they maybe are more equipped to fight back, and it kind of seems like maybe the enemy has managed to also recruit witches of their own. So one of your perspectives is a witch. One of your perspectives is someone else who enters the picture, which maybe they seem like they have their own background, a little bit different from our other character, and I won't say too much else about that. And then you have a character who's basically like a resistance fighter. And I really enjoyed not only this book, but these characters as well. I thought it was an absolute blast. Really, really enjoyed this one. After that, we have Race the Sands. This is a story that every time I bring it up, because it's a standalone that I've recommended quite often, and it always seems like it's going to be not only relatively contained, but it also seems like from its general premise, like it wouldn't be that captivating, and it is so deceiving in that sense. So Race the Sands follows this woman who, within their world, there is a form of reincarnation that occurs, and there is a group of people who are considered kind of like the worst of the worst within society. And when they are reincarnated, they come back as these beings known as Keyhawks that are basically monsters. And society races these monsters for entertainment. And also these races are very, very violent, and a lot of people die within these races. Our main character is somebody who used to be one of the people that would raise Keyhawks. Now she is somebody who actually trains new individuals, new athletes, you could say. So she's basically like a coach. And she also has a daughter. She is kind of down on her luck. She is trying to do everything she can to ensure that she still has what is basically like custody of her daughter within their world. And so she's desperate for basically any job. And then we have another character who enters the picture who is a child who does not have a very good home life. These two characters kind of find each other, and then she starts to train her. It does not seem like it would become as epic and intense as it is, but it definitely has incredible stakes, and there's a lot more to the politics and the religion of their world than you would expect for what seems to just be like a racing book. It was really captivating, so much fun. When I first started it, not only did I think all the things that I've already said, and not only were those first impressions like, oh, what is this? But I also just wasn't sure. When I first started it, I was like, I don't know, we'll see. And I was really taken aback. The further in I read, the more fun I had with this one, and the more that I really felt like the setting itself was really exceptionally well realized. Speaking of exceptional settings, next up we have Warbreaker. I'm sure most of you are aware of Warbreaker, but the setup for this story is that you have these two sisters, one of whom from the time she was very young has been promised to this other land as part of a marriage alliance. The other one, she's the younger daughter. She's kind of just always been around, and the king favors the older one who has been promised to this kingdom, and he just cannot bear to have his daughter married off, so he ends up sending the younger one in her place, which is a terrible idea for a number of reasons. One, she has not in any way been trained for this, and the customs of this other place are incredibly different, and not only is there the risk of her offending them or doing something to upset somebody's sensibilities, but also for her own sake, she doesn't want to cause problems for her country either. So she's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? The other sister is now like, I'm going to go rescue her because she's not ready for this, but she's never launched a rescue mission before. So she's stumbling her way through trying to help her sister. And then through all this, you also have another character who is part of the kingdom that they have been promised to, and this character is basically like a god who doesn't necessarily believe in his own divinity, and you are learning more about the court politics within his country through his perspective. He is very cheeky and silly and over the top. One of the characters, Vivenna, the one that was promised initially, she is very stoic and regal, and then the other character is kind of carefree and borderline flippant, and they are all very distinct in their own perspectives, and then you kind of learn about the world and about the politics through all of them. It's a lot of fun, and also you have this other mysterious character named Vasher who shows up, and you're like, what is he up to? And you're kind of trying to piece together how all of this is going to meet and how it's all going to be intertwined. You're also learning about the history of this place. You're learning about the magic, which is one of a lot of people's favorite parts about this book. It has to do with taking in breaths, and breaths are almost seen as like souls, and the more that you hold, the more power that you have, and the powers have various other pieces that accompany them. So one of the things happens to do with color, for example. So if you've seen artwork or imagery associated with Warbreaker, you probably have seen very colorful illustrations. It's very, very unique. It's very, very fun. And it definitely constantly keeps you guessing. The one book I wanted to mention that is not adult fantasy, but it's just such a blast that I had to bring it up, and that would be A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. I would more so categorize this as middle grade, so it's definitely not adult, and it's not anywhere close to that. But I have mentioned before that this has a tiny bit of a feel similar to something like Shrek, where absolutely the target demographic is a younger audience, but there are things within it that I think make it very enjoyable and fun for adults as well. The setup is that you follow this city where there are some people that have magic, but magic is so different from person to person. Some people's skills can have really significant impacts, and then other people's are very, very small and seem inconsequential. And that is true for our main character. She's a young girl who has the ability to basically compel baked goods or ingredients that are related to baking. So for example, she works in her family's bakery, and she can kind of compel the dough to rise or to be flaky or to not get too hard. And she obviously is a great asset to the bakery, but she's never really viewed herself as being more than good at baking. And then one day, she pretty much right first page of the story, walks into her family's bakery, and there's a dead body. And then all of a sudden, this brings on a lot of the enforcers of the city, and she gets mixed up with a lot of things way over her head and bigger than she could have ever imagined. And while I wouldn't say the stakes necessarily get quite as big as something like Race the Sands, they do get pretty big, and they turn out to impact way more than just her and her family. It is delightful, so much fun. Highly, highly recommend if you just need like a quick, cute, fun read, especially if you are somebody that has a young person in your life and you like to buddy read things with them. This one is a great time. That's it though for a list of some standalone books that I think are great for the summer. If the other video is up already, the one that is for books that are parts of series, I'll have it linked, and if it's not up just yet, it'll be up very soon, so you can keep your eyes out for that one. If you are interested in any of these, I'll have them linked in a pinned comment. And then if you have any of your own standalone book recommendations that you think are great for the summer, please feel free to leave them so that people don't just have my recommendations, but yours as well. Thanks so much for watching though. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.